Honestly, if you know me, you know that I don't really give a fuck about FIFA. I love football, but FIFA, I'm just terrible at it.
Mafia. Gotta get out of my own house.
And it begins.
You've been... Oh, come on. You've got the... Oh.
Average Joe.
Oh,
Bins.
come on.
And,
Football Manager, on the other hand, literally fucking thousands of hours I've put into that game. Anyway, all this is to say that I never thought I'd be sat here making a video about FIFA, yet here we are. Because sometimes news is just so out of the blue and so shocking that even people who don't give a fuck about FIFA perk up and get interested in the story. And what story could someone who doesn't give a fuck about FIFA be interested in? The end of FIFA. The death of FIFA. FIFA 23 is going to be the last EA Sports FIFA game. This is a huge split. This is a split on the level of the Beatles breaking up. I'm talking about EA Sports and FIFA ending their 30-year partnership. Meaning FIFA 23 is going to be the last FIFA. But why? Why? We have really got absolutely no fucking idea. I mean, we know why it's happened. We know what's caused it. But I'm struggling to understand why an agreement couldn't be made, why this has been allowed to happen. So in case you live under a rock, FIFA is the biggest football game on the planet. It has dominated the market for 30 years or so. It was briefly opposed by Konami's Pro Evolution Soccer back in the early 2000s, but Pro Evo never really stood the test of time and soon re-faded into FIFA's shadow. We're talking about one of the highest grossing game series of all time. It's fucking FIFA. This thing makes over $1 billion a year just on Ultimate Team Mode alone. It is insane. So this is why it comes as such a shock. Why have they decided to part ways? Well, one simple answer really. Money. It's always fucking money. The way it currently goes is that EA pay a yearly licensing fee of $150 million to be able to use the FIFA name, and that's where it ends. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the complaint about $150 million a year just to use the name? It's the easiest money they're gonna fucking make ever. Let's not forget, after this transaction, FIFA have nothing more to do with the game. It's all produced, built, marketed and sold by EA. But as I said earlier, FIFA is bringing in revenues of billions of dollars every single year. So 150 million out of those billions is just a drop in the ocean. And FIFA, the organisation, want more. And EA, they don't want to give them more. Now, the difficulty of the situation here, and presumably why they were unable to come to an agreement, is that really, looking at it from a business sense, neither of these companies are actually in the wrong or asking for too much. Both of them have the right to stand their ground. FIFA want more money based on the fact that the game is now earning so much money, and they would argue that the game is only making so much money because it was and still is the only officially licensed football game by FIFA. They would argue that this plays a big part in the reason that FIFA has remained so popular, because ultimately having FIFA in the title dictates that it's the premium choice football game. On the other hand though, FIFA is a football organisation. They don't make video games. They don't have publishers, producers, developers. EA does everything. So EA would argue that the reason for the success of the game is down to their development and evolution of the game. And both of these are actually pretty fair points. EA create and publish the game, so why shouldn't they be reaping most of the rewards? Yet EA's success is based on the fact that FIFA gave them the foot up, making them the official football game 30 years ago. In addition to this, as EA continue to grow and expand the game, we've seen them branching out into additional avenues of revenue beyond the game itself. For example, official esports tournaments, contracts with other football governing bodies, sponsorship and advertisement deals with brands, and even the possibility of NFTs. All of these revenue streams that EA capitalize on are not included in that $150 million a year deal with FIFA. Yet all of these revenue streams are technically generating EA capital whilst using FIFA's name. So you can see where the contention has come from. So in a new deal drawn up by FIFA, they've asked for $625 million per year, payable every 4 years in a $2.5 billion lump sum. Additionally, FIFA want to restrict the avenues and opportunities for further revenue to be made whilst using the FIFA name. So EA said, no. And so we find ourselves in the position we're in now, where the next FIFA is the last FIFA. At least how we know it now. So EA released this on the situation. It starts: to football fans everywhere, I want to start by thanking this incredible community of more than 150 million fans for helping build the world's biggest football entertainment platform, EA Sports FIFA. After nearly 30 years of creating genre-defining interactive football experiences, we will soon begin an exciting new era. Next year, EA Sports FC will become the future of football from EA Sports. Just doesn't hit like FIFA, does it? EA Sports FC. But I guess, to be fair, any name that they went for, whatever they chose, was really gonna sound strange, wasn't it? FIFA is just such a household name, FIFA. On the other side of the coin, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has promised fans that there will in fact be a new FIFA game in 2024, just not made by EA. He also said that it will be the only authentic real game, and the best one available for gamers and football fans. Now, I'm just gonna flat out say that that is fucking hubris. The guy clearly has no background in video game creation, and to even suggest that they could turn something around that meets the expectation that fans have of current FIFA titles is just a gross overestimation and a plain lack of understanding of the current video game industry. Now, that's not to say that developers won't be lining up at FIFA's doors to give it a shot. We saw this happen many moons ago when Sports Interactive, the developers of Championship Manager, split from publishers Eidos. Eidos retained the game's title, while Sports Interactive retained the game's database and engine and became Football Manager. Eidos tried to keep the Champman wheel turning, but it soon died an unhealthy death, and Football Manager still reigns supreme to this day. But there still is money to be made under the name FIFA, and you can bet your bottom dollar that somebody will be willing to take on that challenge and give it a try. Potential buyers could be Konami, who previously created the Pro Evo series and whose newest rebrand, eFootball, has had a pretty devastating beginning. Maybe under the FIFA name, this could be a rebirth for them. More likely though, in my opinion, is 2K, who make the popular NBA basketball games and the PGA golf games, both immensely popular in their own right. 2K is a studio that's familiar with making leading sports titles and have the facilities to push them out annually. They would be my frontrunners if I was to hazard a guess. As for EA Sports FC though, I still hate that title. Why didn't they just call it EAFC? At least it sounds like a football team then. EAFC, shite. Anyway, I'm avoiding getting hung up on that. So I have a prediction about where this game is going to go, and it's something that I've thought for a while, to be honest. Even long before this split, I'd always wondered why, or rather when, FIFA was going to go in this direction. And that's moving across into the live service model. Think about it, we get a new FIFA every year, and what's always the biggest complaint? It's no different to last year's. They've not changed enough. It's the same fucking game. And it's true. It's true. That's why I stopped buying FIFA. In, I think, like 2012, I started buying it every other year just so that I could notice enough change. And by 2019, I just fucked it off altogether. Now, it's no secret how unbelievably successful the live service model works for games. Look at Fortnite, it's constantly adding new features and updating. It's not a whole new game every year, just necessary improvements and season-based changes. That seems like what most sports games should be. You pay for the game once, there may even be a free-to-play version, and then you own that game, and the updates come consistently and frequently. There are so many benefits from a developer's point of view for making this kind of game. Not always for the player's mind, but just on revenue alone, these games turn over a monstrous amount of money. It also allows developers to live test and try new things in the player space by adding new modes and changes, fixing balancing issues and so forth, without players having to wait for the next installment. FIFA is already one of the biggest esports games in the world currently, yet it's the only one of the top esports games that isn't a service-based game. It just seems to me that this is the way that not FIFA is heading. And I imagine next year when we see EA release EA Sports FC, that's exactly what we'll see. Anyway, that's enough rambling about FIFA for one day, and probably forever, to be honest. But like and subscribe, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.